following is a presentation of the ACME Writing Academy.
Are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Ready.
Okay, this is Rick Krizman welcoming you to the ACME Writing Academy. You know, from time to time, we like to take a break from the five-guy pile-on and offer you instead a one-on-one interview with a particular writer or overall creative person. And sometimes we like to ask that person about what spins their wheels, gets them up in the morning, and moves them towards their desk or keyboard or canvas or whatever. So today, the rest of us are going to lay back, and we're going to cut to Mike Magnuson in Acme Studio B in Menasha, Wisconsin. So tell us, Mike, who is our mystery guest today?
Our guest enthusiast today is the poet Joseph Millar. Joe lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, or thereabouts, and has published 4 volumes of poetry, plus a few impressive pamphlet-sized collections of poems, shall we say. And you can find links to these things and to Joe's webpage on acmewritingacademy.com or on the Acme Writing Academy's Instagram and Twitter pages. My first memory of Joe in person, that is, comes from a Pacific MFA faculty meeting. I think it was 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something like that. I was young and pretty, of course. And if you know me, you'll not be shocked to learn that I fucking hate sitting through meetings. Anyways, this was my first full day with the program and my first formal meeting with the faculty, so I was in a bad spot, I guess. Fortunately, nearly 10 years before this, I had read Joe's collection Overtime and had loved it. To me, it was and is the best book of poems about working people that I had ever read. So I was a fan and had always wanted to meet him and tell him, as a fellow author who writes about working people, how much I admired his writing and had taken inspiration from it. And there was Joe sitting across a conference table from me, frowning, chewing on a toothpick, and bitching about the lack of free coffee for the faculty. He was saying something like, I don't know, is that too much to fucking ask? Free coffee from 7 o'clock to 9 in the morning for all the work we do? Needless to say, I was thrilled to see that Joe in person was every bit as awesome as he was in print. And I knew that I'd found a home there. And I'm thrilled to have Joe Millar with us today. How you doing, man?
I'm fine, Mike. Glad to be here.
Are you staying out of trouble?
Yeah, I'm doing the best I can. It's not easy, but with the holidays and all, but I'm doing the best I can, yeah.
Yeah, I understand. So, you're here to talk about some enthusiasms today, and I take it you brought one with you.
I have. The enthusiasm, my current enthusiasm has to do with a project that I started last spring, which is part of an ongoing project I have, which is to read all these books that I was supposed to read when I was younger,
right,
as a student of literature, but I never got around to.
Right.
And one that I'd been putting off for the longest time was this book, Middlemarch, by George Eliot, whose real name, as we know, was Mary Ann Evans.
Right.
And it's a huge book. So, it's understandable that, I would have stalled on it for a long time, but I started reading it and I ended up really liking it. I got into it and I really liked it. And one of the things about the book that's unusual, at least from the point of view of a modern person, which we all are,
indeed,
is that it's, in general, it's a book about people that are trying to be good. Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, they're trying to be good. The people in the book, most of them are trying to be good. And there's a couple main characters in it, but it's unusual in that way, and that it's a book about that. Mm-hmm. Unusual from our perspective today, when so many novels are about people falling apart. And in fact, all the way through the 20th century, the great novels have been about that.
Well,
or many novels.
Wouldn't you say
right?
at the time that was the case as well? You know, you think.
Yeah, there wasn't really a lot of writing about being good. And this novel takes place against the backdrop of the Reform Act, which is like giving more people to vote in England in the late 1820s, early 1830s. Anyways, but the main thing is that the beginning of it it's basically the story of two people, this doctor and this young woman. And the young woman is the one I want to talk about more than the doctor, although both of them are excellent characters who are trying to do good in the world. That's their deal.
Right.
And then I did a little research on it since I talked to you and discovered that this started out as two separate stories, one about each of them, and then she figured out she could put them together. I mean, she's a great ass writer, this George Eliot. I mean, there's no doubt about that. So anyways, the one that I want to talk about is this woman, Dorothea Brooke, who's basically a 19-year-old orphan when the story opens, with a small inheritance, who has dreams of doing some great work in the world. That's what she wants. That's how she is. And when the story opens, the preface of the whole story, Eliot writes about this Spanish Saint Teresa of Avila. I don't know if you know about her, but Saint Teresa of Avila, you might not know about her, Mike. But anyways, I'm about to tell you about her a little bit. Anyways,
very good.
Is the other thing that I did, my old lady was always not wanting me to lug these big books around on vacation, so she got me a Kindle. So I got this book on Kindle, which don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. Don't ever fall for that. Because, when I want to go look something up, I can't ever find it. There's supposed to be some way you can mark your pages and find them. And I've just been about. So I made some few notes. But St. Teresa of Avila, she was a woman who grew up wanting to do big things in the world, great things for mankind, and she found a way to do it. She was so righteous that and I don't mean that in the bad way, I mean that in the good way, like we used to say in the 60s. She was a righteous sister. I mean, she got her own order, founded her own order. She was totally devoted, to God, and she lived her life that way. And that's who George Eliot opens this whole novel talking about. So she's got this prelude in there about St. Teresa.
Right.
Okay. Who at one point, what is it she says? She says, what do I think of? Emily Dickinson. They asked Emily Dickinson, what do you think about Middlemarch? She goes, what do I think about Middlemarch? What do I think of glory? That's what Emily Dickinson thought about this book. Emily Dickinson is a hell of a good poet. Right. They asked Virginia Woolf. Virginia Woolf says this is one of the few English books written for grown-up people. Middlemarch. It's a great book. Okay. So, and the main thing in it is this figure of the noble female, Dorothea Brooke. She's noble. She's righteous. She's cool. When you meet Dorothea Brooks, she's working on making a design of architectural design for one of the neighbors' tenant farmers' cottages because she wants to help the people. So she's making like these designs would be good, and this guy kind of has the hots for her. She says, why don't you put these cottages in for your tenant farmers? They'll be more comfortable and it'll be more efficient and cleaner and all better. Her mind was theoretic and yearned by its nature after some lofty conception of the world. That's a direct quote. She was open, ardent, and not in the least self-admiring. She knew many of Pascal's Pensées by heart. It talks about horseback riding, and she was a good horseback rider, but she had like all these lofty ideas about being spiritual. And she said she felt that she enjoyed horseback riding in a pagan, sensuous way and always looked forward to renouncing it. This young person's enthusiasm for spiritual matters. Dorothea Brooke is the character that I'm talking about. Most of the main female figures in a book that I was familiar with were the 20th century, what they call the bitch goddesses, right?
Right.
Hemingway's Lady Brett Ashley, who basically ruins this young bullfighter's career because for her own selfish gains, or right. Daisy Buchanan, who's in a complete days most of the time about reality and what the things that she's messing. Or Emma Bovary,
right?
You know, who also has really high and lofty plans, but they're all worldly. She wants to be rich. You know, it's like if she was alive today, she'd want to be a movie star. Dorothea Brooke wants to be, you know, spiritual. She gets married to this old man because she thinks it's cool because he's a scholar, and he turns out to be just this dry pedant bastard who chokes all the joy out of her. Basically, it refuses any intimacy. She doesn't even know what she's missing, and she refuses to turn against him. She just constantly looking for ways that seeing the good in him, working to be a good wife, being good to him. Eventually, the guy dies. She takes over. Then she becomes a woman of property, and she does a lot of great stuff. And she's always worried about the poor. She's always thinking about the poor. So this is a noble female. I'm not used to reading, even like you notice, hardly anybody was writing about females. The next book I start to read after I get done with this is Portrait of a Lady by Henry James. And I swear to God, this is totally serendipitous. It was a book my father used to teach, and I would never read it. Because he was teaching it.
Right, I understand.
You know, like I couldn't dig Henry James that much. So I start reading it, and it's like, it's the same kind of woman. Isabel Archer. She's the same kind of woman. She's totally noble. She's totally cool. And so then I start looking up on this. After I talk to you especially, I start looking up on this. And I said, Henry James was hugely affected by Dorothea Brooke and reading about her. And he says, this is a Henry James quote, that we believe in her when he's talking about Dorothea Brooke, who he actually went and met George Eliot, said that she was not pretty. She was, in fact, hideously ugly, but pretty in a different way. And then he speaks about Dorothea. He says, we believe in her as in a woman we might providentially meet some fine day. By what unerring mechanism this is produced, whether by fine strokes or broad ones. This is produced, this is written, how she created her. Whether by fine strokes or broad ones, by description or narration, we can hardly say. It is the great achievement of the book, Dorothea Brooke's character. You know, what else does he say? He said about Middlemarch. He says it's a marvelous mind throbs in every page of Middlemarch. It raises the standard of what is to be expected of women. We all know about the female heart, but there is evidently a female brain as well, says Henry James.
Oh, my God.
He's writing about this book to his brother. So I'm reading about Isabel Archer, and I don't know any of this. I'm like, Isabel Archer, she's the same kind of way. He also says Henry James also that he appealed to the example of George Eliot when he wrote about Isabel Archer, noting that such great writers as Dickens and Robert Louis Stevenson had never attempted to put a woman at the center of their plot, of their whole novel. They hadn't attempted this. No, he didn't talk about what's his name, the Frenchman that wrote Madame Bovary.
Flaubert, yes.
Flaubert. He didn't mention him because, of course, he did put a woman at the center of his heart. He says that when he wrote Portrait of a Lady, it did not come to him as a plot, but altogether in the sense of a single character, the character and aspect of a particularly engaging young woman. Okay? That's Henry James talking about Isabel Archer when he's describing how he wrote Portrait of a Lady. He said that he was not interested so much in doing a big panoply of society in the way that George Eliot had done, but he did want to do this female character of the noble female. And Henry James actually had a young cousin named Minnie Temple, whom he met in August 1865 during a, quote, splendid American summer drawn out to its last generosity. And I knew you'd like it, that, right? Drawn out to its last generosity, Mike, in upstate New York where he was visiting. He says she was, quote, beautifully and indescribably a heroine, that she was, quote, absolutely afraid of nothing she might come to by living with enough sincerity and enough wonder. Isn't that awesome?
I wonder if it's I wonder if some of this has to do with the aspect of irony or not irony applied to a character, where I hear you talking about the character Dorothy Brooks, and it strikes me that if you would describe, especially in contemporary fiction, a woman with that kind of positive resolve the first time you meet her, you would just expect that either can't be true, or that the author was somehow making fun of this person, or the person was a fop. Even if Dickens would describe a man in this way, you would know that the person is not going to be that way in the end, right?
Yeah.
Or they're going to be tested and failed.
Yeah, because of our times. And Isabel Archer, of course, in this story also gets married to an older man and labors under the yoke of marital tyranny. I mean, he's mean to her. He cuts off all of her naturalness, all of her her desire and love and joy in being alive. And she chooses to go with him because she thinks it's cool. She's turned down a couple much better offers to go with this kind of aesthete, who's basically never done anything except parade his good taste. I mean, it's a kind of character that we probably have today, but
or that we've met in the English department here and there.
Yeah, we probably met people like this. But you'd think, why would she go with that guy? Just the same way you think with Dorothea Brooke. What are you doing, getting married to this old man? But with Dorothea, she's younger, but they're both young. And they're both full of life and full of wonder and sincerity and happiness. And they're smart. That's the other thing. They're smart. And they care about the world. So, but part of it also is in James's book, which you do see. I mean, James is writing in the early 1900s, and he's no longer writing a book about people that are trying to do good, the way that George Eliot is, the way that Marianne Evans is. I mean, she's writing a book about everybody in the book is trying to be better than they are, pretty much. I mean, they might be covering up some shit that they did, some things that they did, but it's in the effort to be a good, righteous person. And
well, let me ask you this. Our time is starting to wind a little bit short.
Okay.
How can this kind of thing, having a positive character who remains positive throughout the work and is not destroyed by life, as what we normally see, or turn evil, how can we use that in our work now for people who are writing, something this afternoon?
What I think? I think just let it rip. I think don't care about that. I mean, I think just be like those women. Just go ahead and let it out. That's what I really think. I mean, look at this world we're in. Just go ahead and let it out. I mean, say what you want, and who cares if somebody laughs at you? That might be more of a poetry response, but that's what I really think. I mean, these women are amazing, and I think we should, touch to them as a way of being in the world, and not care if somebody thinks we're a chump. I mean, what the hell? That's
true. We can be enthusiastic about that. If we can be making art and just doing what we have to do, then everything's fine. It's not like we're going to get rich off it anyways,
Yeah, right. Especially poetry. I mean, the stakes are pretty small.
Right. So you have no choice but to be really good at it, I guess.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, hey, Joe, I thank you so much for coming and being part of the ACME Academy today.
My great pleasure. I hope I wasn't too clumsy and whatever.
No, you're great. If you ever have anything else you'd like to talk about again, we'd be happy to have you back.
Oh, well, thank you so much.
All right. In the meantime, this has been Mike Magnuson for the ACME Writing Academy. I wish you safe travels and happy writing.